Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Napoleon Hill Ezine video newsletter. My name is Ray Stendall and I'm joined with Judy Williamson from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and today we're going to talk about the topic of living with chronic pain and how do you really manage to live with chronic pain, which is impacting so many people worldwide. Judy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderfully well, and even though I'm home today, we have different background. I'm enjoying the snow day, so I'm glad we were able to connect again here.
Absolutely. So you're home, and it's good that you're safe and not on those slippery roads. So that's great.
Well, we haven't had too many snow days. This is really the first one for this winter, so it's better to be safe inside than out there looking at all that traffic. So,
indeed. So in terms of today's topic, it's really an interesting topic, and I think our guest columnist Tom Cunningham did a great job with the article of living with chronic pain, and I certainly hope everyone who's watching this video had a chance to read that article. Judy, what are some of your thoughts, as it relates to living with chronic pain?
Well, I was thinking about that topic when I asked Tom to do the guest column, and I know Tom personally, and I've traveled with Tom, and I've had Tom speak at the Napoleon Hill World Learning Center, and he is truly an amazing person. He is a person who puts others first. He focuses on the job that is to be done. He never says no. And he is a person that when there's rules to be followed, he doesn't ask to be exempted from the rules. He follows the rules. And I've watched Tom model this behavior, even though he's a person that daily is living in pain. And I just kind of shake my head and say, wow, how does he do it, So I asked him last week to write an Ezine, to write a column for us, giving people who have some experiences with this some good examples as to how they can deal with what life has given them. But the most important thing that he wrote that stood out for me was that he said, I'm not really my physical self. I'm really beyond that, and I try to go there. I don't try to live in my body. I try to use what I'm given, but I also know that I'm a greater person than my physical self. It's pretty profound, really.
And what stuck out for me was his very positive mental attitude. He seems to exhibit a very positive mental attitude, and he has worked on himself to be able to focus his thoughts so intently so that he's in control of his thoughts. He's in control of the pain, and in the process of doing so, he's come up with some strategies and some tactics that allow him to focus on his purpose and at the same time to put his pain in the background. That's kind of what I was able to gather from talking with Tom before and also going through his article.
I think that's accurate, and I also have read some other research that says that people that are in chronic pain, and anyone who's experiencing pain, whether it's a general, not life-threatening pain, but a pain that's like a headache or a pain from an injury, that you shouldn't ignore the pain, but that you should move into the pain, that you should go into it and experience it. And then when you're in that mode of being in pain, it kind of dissipates. It kind of spreads itself out, and so you can move into it, be in the center of it, and then kind of like a ripple in the water. When you throw a rock into the water, the pain kind of spreads outward. It's a tactic that I think we could try, especially if we have some temporary pain. If we hit our thumb with a hammer, or we have a headache, or we have some other types of pains like a cramp in our leg, we might try to move into that pain and see if that technique works.
I agree, and in addition to that, I think Tom has also mentioned in his article, being able to first acknowledge the pain, being able to do what you can to understand the pain, because the more you understand gives you potentially opportunities to minimize the pain, resolve the pain ideally. In the case of chronic pain where it's not possible to truly resolve it, I guess you really move into that next step, which is adapting to the pain and coming along with those strategies. And one of the things that I picked up from the article that Tom mentioned is this notion of the law of relativity. I mean, his pain relative to other pain that could be experienced. And when you start to put things into context, it helps to, I think, deal with the pain, because you realize that it could be much worse, and be grateful for everything else that you have going on in a positive direction in your life. For example, the ability to see, the ability to still walk and be able to move around even though it hurts.
That's right. You know, another thing about what Tom does in his real life situation is that he always puts others first. When I meet him or when he calls or when he emails, he always asks about, how are you? How's your family? How's this person? What about Chino? What about the other people in the office, Alan and Don and all those people? He asks about them first before you even get a chance to say, how are you, Tom? And so I think by putting himself out there, I think he creates that opportunity to be, you know, outside of his physical self, outside of his pain. And I think that's a remarkable thing. I asked him recently, he kids us all the time. I said, hey, how are you, Tom? And he says, I'm amazing, but I'll be better tomorrow. You know, then you just have to laugh. And by laughing, you know, laughing is like an internal massage. It helps relieve the pain too. So that might be another technique.
Indeed. I think there's really a lot that can be learned from this article, and it's, I think, one that certainly deserves a reread to really pull out all those golden nuggets.
I think you're right. You know, Napoleon Hill talks about it too, and I was recently rereading one of his books, You Can Work Your Own Miracles, and he talks about a woman who suffered a lot of misfortune, some unexpected surgeries, some complications, some loss of finances. And at that time, he knew that she was in need, and he offered her his class for free. And she looked at him and she said, I don't want it for free. I want to pay for it because it's something worth having. And if I'm to take the class, I'm to pay you for it. Well, she didn't pay for the class. She went on to graduate from the class, and if you read that book, you can read the same story. And she became an advisor in like a secretarial capacity to one of the presidents. Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing when you read something like that, what people with that type of incentive can do when they put themselves out there. And it doesn't really give us any excuses. And also, really, that's, you know, I think that's the role modeling that we observe when we see somebody who's experiencing a great deal of difficulty. It's kind of like a reprimand for us, isn't it? When we look at somebody who's has difficulty walking or hearing or just plain, you know, dealing with life, and we think, well, you know, I'm not so bad. I can still get around. I have all my faculties. I can do this. And the reprimand is, you know, there but for the grace of God go I, you know, and we have to remember that at times we might be in that situation, you know.
Yeah, this video reminds me of a good friend of mine. Her name is Paulina. She lives on the Big Island of Hawaii. And she was born with no arms and no legs. And I met her at a personal development conference. I was taking a program through Les Brown, and I was learning some things through him. And I met her, and I got to know her, and I went out to the Big Island on vacation, and I spent some time with her and her child and her husband. And she's really an amazing woman, you know, just in terms of the things she's able to do and her positive mental attitude. She is able to drive a car, first of all, which is totally amazing. It's true the car is outfitted in a special way, but she can drive a car. She can do so many interesting things. She travels around the world. She speaks to people. She inspires people. And she is showing all of us how the strength of a positive mental attitude and focus and purpose can really lead to a life of meaning. And I found her to be very inspirational. I'm happy that she's a friend. So it's true. I really do think these stories from Tom and my friend Paulina really set the bar and set an example that all of us who don't have chronic pain in our life really have no excuse, and we should move forward with purpose and excitement to make our dreams come true.
That's right. And I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of that, because if we do have some issues, they may be minor and they're easily overcome. And by putting someone in our path that may not have as easy of a time physically as we do, we're reminded that we're really given a special extra grace by the universe. And that means that we can't just ignore our definite major purpose or our heart's desire. We have to get out there and get to work and do it, not be lazy and make excuses, you know. So I think a lot of times the people that come across our path are put there to remind us that we need to get busy, because our time is, like anyone else's on this planet, limited. We're not sure when it's going to end. Could be tomorrow, could be 10 years from now or 50 years from now. But we have to stay on task, because the task that we were given when we entered this dimension is the task that we're to complete.
And the more we work on that task or our purpose, the more we involve our mind in it, the less time we have to think about the pain. So, I mean, it helps on that dimension as well.
Well, I hope some people write us about this, and if they have chronic pain, they can give us some other ideas of how to deal with those issues, and also how to turn that pain into a ministry for the other people who are going to be watching them as a role model for positive mental attitude. And we can do better too. Everyone can do better, but it takes a person with a special gift sometimes, like a Tom Cunningham or like your friend Paulina, to remind us that our road isn't quite as hard as theirs. So we should make an extra effort to even go beyond where we're at today.
It's a great idea, and we can take those comments and we can mention them in our next video and continue to share the message. Please email those comments and questions to us at ezinequestions@naphill.org. You can see that at the bottom of your screen. And we would certainly love to hear from you, as well as any other comments or questions or topics you'd like us to cover. And please do share this video with your friends, family, and coworkers so that this message can really get out there and make as big an impact as we can.
Yes, thanks, Ray, for another great discussion, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Thank you so much, Judy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.